Average photographs are the result of thinking about average things in average ways. Today, you can make a choice to continue to be like those tens of thousands of other photographers who every day pick up their camera and make this crucial mistake, which means that they go out taking photographs and wearing a blindfold. Or you can take up the challenge to take your photographs from the ordinary to the extraordinary. The antidote to these average photographs is to see the world photographically rather than in the normal humdrum way that everybody else sees it. 20 years ago, I was taking a road trip across Karoo in South Africa with a friend of mine. Now, the Karoo is a very flat and just, wide open space of nothingness. And we've been driving along the same straight road for hours and hours and hours when all of a sudden I jumped out of the car. I'd stopped it, obviously, right? Took my camera and took a picture of the road that we just traveled down behind us. Now, later on, when I showed this friend the photograph, she remarked, and she paid me that compliment that we love as creative people, that she said, I was standing right next to you. How did you see this photograph? Because I didn't. I just saw that boring long road that we'd been driving down. And that is the benefit that you get when you begin to start to see the world photographically, is that you are letting this ability that we all have, because, you've picked up a camera in the first place, to let it out, to have it to start to speak your own unique voice. Those tens of thousands of photographers who every day are creating all those average photographs, well, they are not tapping into that voice. They're not beginning to see the world photographically. Now, this is nobody's fault, because from the moment we open our eyes, we are taught to put the world that we see into neat little boxes. That shape represents a dog, and that shape represents a cat, and this shape represents a tree. And as we get older, these things become more and more entrenched to the point where our minds just filter out so much of what we see on a daily basis, because it goes, well, I've seen that before. I don't need to tell the person about this thing that I've seen. Now, unfortunately, this is the mistake that leads photographers down this creative blind canyon where you get stuck in a rut. You know that there are photographs out there somewhere. You can see the blue sky up above you, but you don't know how to get out of this warren of dead ends. So those average photographers who are taking pictures of the everyday thing, their minds are often elsewhere when they're taking photographs. Think about this scenario, right? So it's Friday afternoon. You are driving home after a long week at work, and the traffic is bumper to bumper. The AC's broken. It's hot. It's an awful day. Lundberg's been on your back about the TPS reports, and you just know he's going to call you in to come over for the weekend. And so this wonderful sun that is setting in front of you, bathing everything around you in awesome light, and picking out shapes and form and texture on the cars all around you, is to you just another, it's another inconvenience in your life. And the thing is, when you go off and you take photographs, often this happens. Your mind is elsewhere. So you're not seeing the possibilities of things, because your sort of inner sixth sense brain, photographic brain, is saying, look, don't worry about this, don't worry about that, So next time you're out photographing, try as much as you possibly can to be present in the moment, to put all the other stuff aside. I mean, photography should be a release from the pressures of day to day. And the more that you are kind of like almost like a Zen sort of thing going on with it, then the more you are open to seeing the possibilities, to starting to see the world photographically, because you are paying attention to the everyday things that often people just ignore. So often great photography is hidden in front of you. It's hidden in plain sight. And I recall a story, I think it was Joel Mayovitz, was looking at some Eugene Auger photographs. And there was one in particular, he was spending some time looking at it. And he goes, I can't really see, I don't really sort of see what Auger saw in this photograph. This is always a good exercise to to strengthen your photographic vision, is to look at the work of other photographers and think about why they took that photo. Anyway, so, Mayovitz is looking at it and he goes, it wasn't until I turned the photograph around that all of a sudden when I looked at it with fresh eyes, I looked at it in a new perspective, then I saw what had been staring me in the face the whole time. And it was the way, the lovely symmetry of the lines and the trees and the buildings and stuff that he hadn't noticed before, because it was so hard to break free from the ideas and the boxes that our minds, or in that case Joel's mind, had put the image into. Another really simple, easy trick that you can use to start to challenge the way you think about the world is, most of us look at the world from left to right. We do this. We read words left to right. We do all that sort of stuff. And our mind is very adept at filling in blanks and just making assumptions about the things we're going to see ahead, right? Because it makes us do everything a lot quicker. But if you start doing everything backwards, if you look at a landscape from right to left, then you start to notice odd things. You start to notice things you didn't notice before, because your mind is having to actually pay attention. And that's really the first step is to get your mind off of autopilot. So when you're out there, next time in the field, think about challenging the perception, challenging the way that you assume a photograph should look from whatever it is that you are photographing. With this new way of seeing the world, of interpreting the things around you, you need a new language to go with it. My son is 4 and he is beginning to learn how to write. And he's doing this by copying letters in his workbook. In photography, we do much the same. When you learn photography, you learn some basics, you follow tutorials and what have you. Now, both of these are mechanical processes. Just as much as it would be ridiculous to think that once my son has mastered copying A, B, C, D, E, F, G, what have you, that he will be able to go off and write, the next great novel. It's ridiculous to think that you could take some tutorials about how to take a picture in a certain way and that you can then rush off and go and create great photographs. And that's because in both cases, we're not learning the language. We're learning the bits and the bobs. But really, the basics are something you can do in a weekend. You can have a weekend of just kind of like going through things and challenging the way that you think and putting in some basic processes. And all of a sudden, your photographs will improve overnight, over that weekend period. So I'm going to give you a taster of the sort of things that you can be thinking about when you look at photographs. And if you want to invest more time in learning this language, I'll put a link to our website below where you can find out some more information about how you go about this. But in this kind of case, so think about there's the basic things, shape, form, texture, color, these sort of elements. If you see something that attracts your attention, and that's always a good clue. If something just leaps out at you, there's something about it that is appealing to you on a level you may not be aware of. So look at that object. Think about, how can I photograph it in a way that plays with its form a little bit, lower angles, higher angles, shooting through something, all these kind of things that change the form and of the object itself into something that is more interesting than just a simple basic representation of what it is that you're photographing. Texture is another thing you can enjoy playing with. Think about a tree. A tree is a great example because it has so many things about it. If you close your eyes and you think about a tree, then no doubt you will come up with pretty much the same shape as I have. And when you think about a tree, you could photograph it from low down. You could photograph it from the top if you had a big enough cliff or something like that. But the texture of the bark, the tree trunk itself, the leaves, these are all things that you can also explore. You can use those to enhance the photograph, to make it feel more visceral, more real. And texture itself can be the whole point of the image. So you see, all of a sudden, you're taking one basic thing and starting to put layers and layers and layers on it of opportunity for you to have better photographs. Color and light. There's 2 more. It just keep on coming. A lot gets said about color, and you get into color theory and all that sort of stuff. And really, I think as a basic thing with color, all you need to do with color is go, do I like the color? Do I like the way that it feels? Does it give me a mood? We're all kind of fairly aware that, bluey kind of toned images make us feel a bit more sort of melancholy, and red is maybe a bit more exciting. Just take those basic concepts and go with your gut with color. Does it feel how you want the photograph to feel? And the light is the great leveler, because there's lots of different types of light, and sometimes you think, oh, the light is rubbish, but really the light is right all the time. Just depends on what sort of image it's right for. If you want to shoot moody, sort of quiet sort of image, then obviously harsh directional midday sun is not really gonna do it like that. But do understand and get to grips with light, that and it is an ongoing process. None of these things you are going to master, because once you've mastered something, which in a creative field is ridiculous as a concept, then your journey stops. And I've been taking photographs for 40-ish years, and I'm still learning every day, as are you. So so don't take these all things as things to be mastered. They're things to explore. So how do you know? How do you know if all of these little attempts or these starting blocks are actually working for you? Well, it's quite simple actually. If you have been a smoker, then you will know that as you quit and those cravings start, as the cravings become stronger, that means you are closer to actually giving up smoking entirely. Right? Because your body's pushing back. And this is the same in photography, that you have, your mind is going, I don't know about this, and you get frustrated and you think the images are rubbish, and that's natural, because your mind is fighting against change. And the more that it pushes back against you, the better you should feel about this, because it means you are closer to making that breakthrough of starting to see the world with your own unique photographic eye. It is important at this stage, though, I can't stress this enough, that you do not ask random strangers for feedback about your experiments, your journey, because it's your journey specifically, so who are they to give you advice about whether or not it works? It's up to you. Does it work or not for you? Right? If you must seek advice, then seek it from people whose opinions you value, and who also are not going to blow smoke up your backside just for the sake of blowing smoke up your backside. The more that you do this, the more that you push yourself, the more that you think about shape and texture and form and all these other options that you have available to you, the more that you notice the everyday, the more that you are starting to elevate your photographs from this average pool of averageness in the world of average photographs that all look the same. All I want for you is to take this voice inside you, and I keep saying voice, and it is a voice, right? We all have this passion, this desire, and this ability to share our unique visions with the world. It's just to get you to unleash that, to share it with everybody, and and maybe some people like it, maybe they won't, but ultimately, who cares? Right? It's your photograph, so long as you are happy and proud of the work. Anything else is a bonus. Ask yourself a question. If you could only take one more photograph, and that would be the legacy of your entire output, what would it be? The internet abounds with, I think, quite awful advice about if you just take as many photographs as you possibly can, then you will become a good photographer, right? And that's a nonsense. You need to be, every time you're out taking photographs, trying to take the very best photographs that you possibly can. Because when you just try to create good photographs, right, then statistically speaking, most of your photographs are going to be, rubbish, right? But if you go out trying to every time create outstanding photographs, then statistically you're going to end up with some fairly good photographs. I mean, Ansel Adams, because he's back on the channel, our Ansel, right? He would say if he went out, and he got one good photograph in a month, then he said, well, that was quite good. You know, that was a good return, right? But he didn't just take one photograph. He took a number of images, but each one he tried to make the very best. And maybe one was good, you know, enough for his standards to be considered great, right? But I'm sure there was a whole bunch of others in there that were pretty damn good as well, right? Now, this is a whole thing, is that, you know, you can't just keep pushing on, right? You need to, sure, be wary of not wary, you need to be open to the idea of making mistakes, of trying things out that don't quite work. But you do need to make the effort that every time that you press the shutter, the photograph you are trying to create is as good as you possibly can do it. Machine gunning your way through a whole session or whatever, taking, you know, thousands of photographs and then trying to pick out one or two that are okay, is not going to improve your photographic eye and your vision at all. The average photographer that you have chosen not to be is the photographer who looks at the same work that's being produced over and over and over, like facsimile after facsimile, and doesn't understand why. Why did that photograph originally work so well that it was copied a million times over? You have a gift within you of wanting to see the world in your own unique way and to share that vision with anybody else who is willing to look at it. You are taking the time to invest in yourself to polish that gift. Think of this video as that roadmap that is going to help you get out of that canyon into those wide open plains, where the tools that you are going to learn in this video here are going to help you express yourself through your photography even more. Thank you ever so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.